Okay, I just had an interesting dream that I just wanted to share. So this one I had actually this morning. So this was kind of like a, early morning sort of dream. So this is the 3rd of August, 2025. So this one is basically all set where we are all. There's basically quite a lot of us. I would have said 100, 150. 200 maybe people, and we're all on this hill area. So me looking behind me, there's some slightly hillier bits. Then I can see rolling hills in front of me. Okay. So around me, men, women, children, all kind of going about their day. Okay, is how this kind of starts. So me and quite a few other people, we're all kind of like lined up. This will sound strange, but it's almost like, just kind of lined up in rows almost, and we're transfixed on a much larger settlement that is down in the valley. So it's much lower down, quite a big distance away, miles away. But this big settlement, I'm very aware in the dream that we are Israel. We are Israelis. And those who are over there are a Muslim nation, okay, or at least a Muslim settlement, let's say, is what they are. So we're just trying to live in peace up there. We're just, as I said, just doing our thing, and we're all transfixed, as I said, on this particular settlement that's down there. And what we start seeing is projectiles coming across. Now they're being fired from this settlement that's over there. But they're coming over not at a rapid speed. So I described it in my writing as of the dream was almost like darts, like arrows coming across, something like that. Not missiles, not really rapid speed. They were coming in a bit slower than that, but they did have explosives on them. And everyone that we saw coming across, you would look at it as it was going by, it had a flag on it. And it was like a fabric flag that was tied to it as it was going over. It was like advertising the fact where this has come from, but we could obviously see where it was coming from. I mean, it was obvious who our enemies were in this scenario. And the flag, surprise, surprise, was red, white, and black. Now, I know all the nations, and I googled it anyway, but I knew it anyway. All the nations surrounding Israel all have the same colours because it's an Arab nations generally have the same colours. I don't know the full reason why, but they generally will always have white, red, black, green. Okay. So we've got like Libya, United Arab Emirates, Syria, Jordan, Sudan, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Palestine, Iraq, Yemen, and more. All obviously surrounding Israel have those flag colours. And I've seen somebody else actually who mentioned, isn't that weird that matches up with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? White, red, black and green. Whether there's a connection there, I don't know. But as I said, these things were coming back off with these flags attached. And they were coming through, as I said, they were coming through quite slowly so you could move out of the way. It's literally like somebody firing an arrow at a massive distance. If you're paying attention, you just move out of the way. And that's what we were doing. They were coming in with small explosives on them, and they were coming through. We're just moving out of the way, letting it go bang off, over there, wherever it may be. Some of them were whizzing straight over our heads anyway. So it was a nuisance. And not at the time, but afterwards it made me think of obviously the Iron Dome, with Israel. They just go about their day, they just keep doing what they're doing. Because their Iron Dome's got such a phenomenal intercept kind of rate that they can just go pretty confident in going about their day and not have to stop, necessarily. Obviously they go into shelters and stuff, but they can be quite confident in their own defences. This was sort of similar, really. I mean, as I said, because we could just move out of the way, so we weren't really too concerned. But then they start to really up the volume. So then, rather than just a few coming over and moving out of the way, and it's kind of like, oh, move out here. It's one coming over. Let's just get out of the way of it. It was volume, and so we were then starting to get a bit more concerned because obviously you can move out of the way so much, but when they're coming at a rapid speed, you've just got to get out of the area because you're going to get just peppered by these things. So we were starting to get all of our stuff together just to get out of the area. We would, as I said, we were just peacefully just sitting there doing nothing. trying to live in peace, and we were just getting hammered by all these things coming over. But as this loads and loads were coming over, I almost had like binocular vision, where you just kind of zoom in an area, and I zoomed in because we started to see this dust kicking up a bit down in the distance, and as I zoomed in, I could see that they were mounted up on horses, and these again, I don't think it's relevant, but the horses were tanned colour. They were getting on, quite a few horses, and they were coming towards us. So we were sort of thinking, right, they're going to be coming across pretty quick, so we need to just get our stuff and go. I was very aware, as I said, that we were Israelis. We were just a small number. And we were getting attacked, obviously, by a big number. So, I mean, you can literally symbolically look at that as, the size of Israel versus, especially in population, versus all the nations are against them. They're just so massively outnumbered. And that's what it kind of felt like. And it was like, look, we're just trying to, sit on our heel here, we're just trying to sort of live in peace, but you guys just seem to want to just keep attacking us for no reason. So that's what this was like. Anyway, and it got to the point where they were starting to get close, and I was very aware what their mission was going to be, because you just know things in dreams, was that they were going to be capturing us. That was the plan. They were just going to be capturing us. But because I was a Christian, I knew it was pretty much guaranteed that I was going to be killed, and I was perfectly fine with that. I was just thinking, well, fine, I'll just stay. They can do whatever, and I don't really care. But everybody else was packing up and getting going, and then it just kind of ended that part of the dream. But it sort of picked up in a similar sort of scenario where now I was still in a grassland sort of area, rather than it being sort of just grassy hills and stuff like that and valleys. This was more just kind of pretty much flat, and I was then just walking into this area where there was crowds of people, not big crowds, I mean very, very small crowds, but they were crowding around teachers. So you would have like a teacher, and then quite a few people all around them, and that teacher was teaching them various different things. The one that I saw was teaching self-defense. He was doing all this and that, and I can't remember where he had a weapon or whatever, but he was mainly talking to people about self-defense. And then you would see just 20 feet behind them, something like that, there'd be somebody else, again, a load of people all around listening to what this person was saying. And it had this kind of like a camp, like, sort of like summer camp sort of feel, or something like that, where you're going somewhere. And in this scenario, we were kind of learning skills and bits and pieces. But I was just passing through. So in this scenario, I was just pretty much just passing through. And so I was just kind of walking through these kind of crowds and just kind of navigating through all these different people, listening to the people as they were saying various different things as I was going through. And that was the same for other people as well. So there was quite a few of us who were just walking through, navigating through, and we just kept on walking. So we kept on walking through along this grassland bit, and we were quite sparsely spread out, I would have said. Not necessarily at this point. There's quite a lot of us, but as we kind of I guess other people were stopping and stuff like that, we were kind of a bit more sparsely spread out. So I was heading off, and I was with a couple of young guys, but I mean young. I mean they were kind of like early teens kind of age, a couple of boys, and they saw that the trail was kind of going up, and then it was snaking back down. And when it got to that kind of snaking back down bit, we were kind of seeing people through a kind of like a hedge line or a tree line, something like that. We were seeing them. We just sort of thought, well, what's the point in really going or snaking around like that? Because we could see them, they come back down. So we might as well just cut through. And one of these boys just cut through, because there was actually a house, weirdly, just in the middle of nowhere. This house, and we were kind of looking almost like down like a driving, like a where they would park their cars or something like that. It was like a little side gate or something like that. And this kid just, he just ran around there, and I thought, I don't know if I want to do that. But I ended up going through with them. And I'm just going to jump back a little bit. So just prior to us jumping through and connecting up to everybody else, there was something else that happened. So I remember a snake sort of going around a corner. As I said, we're all walking in convoy. Loads of us walking in convoy, but quite spread out. But what I noticed was, as we're walking through the grass, was that there was pools of blood, and they were really big pools of blood. So it was like somebody just been massacred. You know, nothing would have survived the amount of blood loss that I was seeing, and there was no bodies or anything like that. And so we were all kind of like more kind of gazing down at the floor, and that was our path. So as a convoy, you're always just, you know, you're just paying attention to the person in front of you, aren't you? But we were all following this blood trail, which wasn't explained at all, which was a bit bizarre. Walking, as I said, following this blood. But yeah, as I said, jumping back to that other bit. So we then cut through, and then it just comes out onto like a playground sort of area, which is really strange. So it's very much like, you know, my school playground where we used to play football / soccer, obviously, for any kind of US people. And I was just in the centre of the pitch, and I was just booting the ball about to the boys who just wanted a little bit of a kickabout, really. You know, they were, as I said, they're pretty young, so I was just kind of booting the ball around to them. And somebody came up beside me, and they happened to have a dog. Dog was kind of brushing around my legs and stuff like that. And then I think it might have licked me or something like that. But yeah, I ended up waking up. I don't know how relevant that bit is, to be honest. Probably not relevant at all. But as I was waking up, I was still part of the dream, but I was in the phase of waking up. The screen just went completely black. You know, my field of vision went completely black, like closed eyes. Obviously, but it was pitch black. But I saw an image in that blackness. So how I would describe it is exactly how, you know, when you look at the sun or any kind of image at night time, and you get the outline, and you kind of think, you know, that's how you're looking at the TV as an example, you know, and as a presenter or something, you kind of have that bit where you can see where the person was, and then the rest of it that was maybe quite light, you know, you get that kind of image of purple or bluish kind of colour. So that's how this literally looked, exactly like that. So it was like I'd seen something burn into my eyes, and I was just seeing that image. But it was incredibly basic. So it was, how I described it when I woke up was almost like somebody had drawn it with their finger, you know, into sand or something. Very, very basic. But it was basically, I knew what it, I'll explain that, but the shape, it was the shape of a woman. Okay, I could definitely tell it was a woman, it wasn't a man, because obviously how a woman looks, even in a basic way of drawing it, it was very obvious what it was. But I woke up, and it was that wake up of woman. As I kind of open up my eyes, it was woman. I was like, right, okay, don't know really what to make of that. And then, so I wrote the dream down, Today's Sunday, so I've been to church, and on the lead up to church, my mum had come round, obviously, to meet us, and then we were going to go off to church. And I was just talking about what the dream was, and she kind of sparked in me something about the meaning of the dream. And I was saying, oh yeah, we were all walking along this trail, and you know what it's like, you know, you're just following the person in front of you. You've got no idea who's at the front, who's actually leading us. And then I just kind of paused and thought, well, we're following blood. And I remember in the dream, and then it flashed back to me. I was in the dream. I was like, oh yeah, I remember in the dream that this was Jesus's blood, that we were following Jesus's blood, and we were essentially following Jesus. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a bit of a realization. And then, you know, we get in the car. I'm thinking to myself, right, got to write that down, because that's obviously important, because we're following Jesus. Clearly, we're following Jesus. That's what we're doing. I was like, oh well, that makes me think of like an exodus, you know, because we're all leaving all together. We're in a big convoy leading, and we're being led out of somewhere. Again, it's like an exodus, and that was really, really strange as well. So I thought, okay, I think that's important as well. And then I started thinking about the woman, and I thought, well, what's the relevance of the woman? And I'm thinking, oh wow, there's an exodus, isn't there, of Israel, where they're leaving Israel, and there's a woman involved. And I thought, oh, that's the bit to do with It's in Revelation, the bit that's really, really symbolic, where it talks about, the dragon that comes to devour the child, before it, ready for when it's born. And obviously it's talking about Jesus and stuff like that, but before he was born and so on. And then it talks about, obviously, the bit where the woman is chased, chased by the dragon, etc., etc. So I thought, okay, so yeah, definitely. So definitely the woman's Israel. And I've just been dreaming about Israel being attacked, being chased out of an area. Then my second part of my dream, I'm actually walking out. I see the nations. The nations are all these nations that are red, white, black, and green. So I know the nations involved. So that all makes sense, and that's Revelation, yeah, because that's all those same nations, which are the nations that come against them. I mean, with other nations, like I think it's probably like Turkey, isn't it? And what's it called? And Russia involved, as well as a lot of these nations I've already mentioned with the flag colours. So I think, well, okay, that's what it's telling me. It's telling me about the Exodus. It's telling me about this, and these two dreams were connected, and that's what it means. So I'm just gonna read a little bit of that part, so you're not just I'm not just making it all up. But to look this up, it's mentioned quite a few places. I just quickly googled it really, where the woman, what's the bit with the woman being chased to Petra. Now I know it doesn't say specifically in the Bible Petra. It does talk about Bozrah in different places and talks about Edom. But I think I think most people believe that Israel flees, once the Antichrist comes, they flee as a remnant. So again, it could have been that all those, the fact that there was only a small amount of us was meant to represent the remnant of Israel. We were a very, very small amount, or it could just mean Israel versus, the Islamic nations, and that's what they were representing. So it could mean either, to be honest, but obviously remnant fits into it as well, because of 2/3 are obviously going to get killed, only 1/3 reserved to be taken to safety, and they're taken to safety to Jordan. Specifically, Petra is where they think the people will be. Obviously, the people of Israel will be kept safe. And I'm going to read the extract that's specific to that. So that's Revelation 12. The lead up to it is obviously Revelation 12:1, where it talks about the dragon, talks about the woman, etc., etc. Then it's really just 6 and 14 where it talks specifically about the woman in that context. So feel free obviously to read the bit before that, but the bit specifically that I'll read is just 6 when I can find it. Yeah. So, all right, now I'll do 5. So she gave birth to a son, a male child who would rule the nations with an iron scepter, and her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. The war, and then it talks about the war in heaven, doesn't it? It talks about obviously Michael, the devil's cast down to the earth, and that's where he was obviously enraged. Notice he's got a very, very short amount of time, and where obviously everything goes absolutely crazy. And it was number 14, wasn't it? So number 14 is, yes, I do 13. So where the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. So pursuing the woman, Israel, who had given birth to the male child, Jesus, of course. The woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a times and half a time, so 3.5 years, out of the serpent's reach. Then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with the torrent. But the earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. And the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who kept God's commandments and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. So I guess any of those converted, Christians, I guess at the time, and obviously the remnant of Israel. So again, as I said, a lot of people feel that is definitely talking about Petra. You've got the narrow caverns and stuff like that, perfect for water, going through. Then there's a big earthquake, isn't there? right towards the end, and it's that earthquake that a lot of people say, oh yeah, that's the earthquake that then opens up the earth, and then the water just goes into there and doesn't flood the whole area. Again, look into it yourself. There's plenty of people who have done some studies on the amount of population that could be hidden within Petra. It's absolutely massive, millions apparently. Can hide within the caves and stuff like that. The reason I believe, again, is just to give you a little bit more context around it as well. So Jordan, obviously Jordan's not always been the most friendliest of nations to Israel, but they are listed as one of the nations that the Antichrist isn't able to control. So obviously the Antichrist does not control the whole world with his armies and stuff like that, nations that he has control over. And Jordan is one of those nations that I've been told is not under the Antichrist control, which is why the people of Israel can hide there. So short, well, not short distance, obviously you're going into another country, but as far as distances go, it's not a massive distance really to Petra, across there, and to hide in that kind of safe area there. So I think that was what I wanted to cover off. As I said, really, really interesting. It was interesting because obviously, again, this is only my fifth video. I've got about 80 to do, so I've got stacks and stacks of different things that I've been obviously looking to record, but this was one that I felt was timely. I just wanted to get this one out, and I'd been sort of preying on, because I haven't really had many dreams recently, and if I was to go back to like May, bearing in mind we're August, in May, I had masses of dreams. June, really quiet. July, not that much either. So it's kind of like it's calmed down a bit. But at the same time, I'm obviously praying and thinking about it and thinking, I've got so much. I can't keep up with what I've got. All these different videos I need to obviously put together. But there's something about getting a dream that you just know that it's from God. I can't construct these kind of dreams. My imagination doesn't create things like this that piece together, and they only piece together over time. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it actually takes years, and then you realize, exactly what this all was. There's been some phenomenal timing that I've noticed. I've only been writing my dream journal probably over the last 3 to 4 weeks, something like that, and it's phenomenal the things that have happened as I've written one of the dreams. Then I've had things in my everyday life that literally match the dream perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And you think, wow, the God's timing is unbelievable. To the point where I had that dream, 2 years, I had a dream 2 years ago, then I start writing out the dream, and that at that particular time, which he knows I'm going to be writing the dream out, which is so bizarre, is he just brings all this stuff on the screen. I'm literally, there was a dream I had, and I was watching the TV program Lost. I've never seen it before. It's just one of those I never got around to seeing. And literally, I'm watching Lost, and my dream that I've just written about 15 minutes ago is on screen. It was so bizarre. And I was like, is this really happening? And it was everything, absolutely everything that I had in my dream, to the most, again, I'll just give you a little bit. I'll obviously going to put it into another video, but it's one I will get to quite soon. But because it's a triple dream, I don't quite know how to break it down, if I'm honest. Because it was a triple dream all in one night, I've had another triple or quadruple dream over several nights. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how to break them down. But this particular one was one where it was like a submarine, and I had a dream about a submarine, and there was like a shark and stuff, and I was watching this shark, and there was almost like a cat flap around the area that I was somehow able to get in and out in a submarine, in a side of the sub. It was like at the front of the sub, quite close to the front of the sub. It was like a cat flap, is all I could say. It's like you pushed your way through a rubber seal and you would get into the submarine, in and out in the same way. Obviously could not happen in reality, but this is how it happened in my dream. And then I'm watching Lost, and in that particular dream anyway, I'm in the submarine. This shark has somehow got in the submarine in my dream. This is in my dream, and I'm in the submarine, and then suddenly everything goes crazy. It's like it's like this big bang, and all the lights start coming on. Like the warning lights, the sirens, you know, all the like little bit sprinkles of water coming in, you know, typical sort of stuff, you know, when a sub gets hit by a torpedo. And in my dream, I was always thinking, have we just got hit by a torpedo? Have we just bumped into something, you know, navigationally, just, you know, not seeing what we're doing, and banged into something? I didn't really know. And then I watched this Lost episode the same day I'm writing it. 15 minutes later, I'm watching an episode and in Lost where they have a bomb that gets onto the submarine, and one of the guys decides to sacrifice himself, runs down holding this bomb down to the end of the sub, and it explodes. And then all the sirens start going off, all the lights start going off, little sprinkles of water, starts filling up. No shark inside, which there was in my dream. There was a shark that somehow got inside the submarine. I think it was acting aggressively or something, and I'd decided we were going to capture it and bring it in. And it was a bit weird, but and that happened. And then it shows people escaping out of the submarine through this blown up hole, which was in exactly the place where this cat flap was, which was round, and it was just a bit bigger than your body, which is exactly the same size as this hole was. And they're all coming out, and I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. This is identical, pretty much, apart from this, obviously, as I said, the shark inside the submarine. Other than that, it was exactly the sort of same thing. And there was other bits as well which matched up to do with that that season and things like that as well. But yeah, sorry, I've gone on and into all sorts of different stuff, but yeah, I just find it just phenomenally humbling when you have dreams that describe, you know, they're not always, you know, I wouldn't have said I've not had anything that's a prophecy as such. I've had things that, you know, you've had, I would have called them more confirmations. So you have like something, well, a bit like that, you know, like I've just sort of described, you know, we have a confirmation of something, or, you know, something that absolutely kind of confirms what you've seen is true, or something like that. You know, you have, you know, things that come up on your phone, or another video you watch which is exactly answering your questions and stuff like that. Just phenomenal things that happen, that make the Christian life so incredibly interesting, amongst other things, of course. But yeah, that's where I'll leave this one for today. As I said, I've got loads and loads of others to get to. It's just finding the time really to get all these ones out, and obviously knowing which ones to do. They're all out of order. I'm just kind of picking ones that are really interesting, but there is so many that I'm not sure quite what to do. There's lots of ones to do with, you know, spiritual warfare ones, which are really interesting. Actual demonic attacks I've had, open eye kind of stuff that I want to get to, which are obviously not going to be child friendly at all. Yeah, loads of ones which are proper lessons as well, rather than almost like bringing the Bible alive. I was saying to my mum in church today, is that dreams are almost like our version of hearing Jesus's parables, I would say. It's, you know, because Jesus was obviously saying things in certain ways, in a pictorial, in a kind of imaginative way, wasn't it, of giving you a lesson. That is how the dreams come through. They're just like parables. And sometimes I've had the parables, you know, of the I'm trying to think if I have had one. I have, yeah, I've had like wheats and tares, that kind of stuff, but just done in completely different ways, which, as I said, just so interesting, the way that they all kind of come together. And it's just another way of God just telling us something in the Bible in a new, inventive way. And how many times has he done this for other people? You know, it just blows my mind as to the how obviously we get our, you know, our inspiration, our, you know, our ability to invent and our creativity and things like that from God. But it's just crazy to see that the way in which you know, he puts these things together for you. It's just phenomenal, the way they all kind of piece together like a jigsaw. Sometimes over time, as I said, sometimes immediately. You know, sometimes you come out and it's boom, I know exactly what that means. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and you get it over time. But yeah, I've gone on too long. Thanks for your, if you got to the end, thank you for listening, and hopefully you got something out of it. And I will film more.